Can you think of a time when there was certainly Jackson Arnold's the guy? There's no question he is the guy. However, obviously, outside of the bowl game performance, there's not much there. When is the last time that Oklahoma came into a season without a guy that it was like, okay, we know this guy's a star?
Well, here's the thing, Mark. In hindsight, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it was very much that way with Kyler Murray going into the 2018 season. And he had a transcendent campaign, obviously won the Heisman Trophy, but Kyler Murray at that point, most of the nation looked upon Kyler Murray as the guy that couldn't crack it at Texas A&M and went and backed up Baker Mayfield for 2 years at Oklahoma. So by no means was Kyler Murray considered across the board unanimously to be the next great thing at quarterback for Oklahoma. He turned out to be, certainly, but that just underscores a reality that I think goes understated in college football by analysts and pundits when discussing really any team's outlook for the season ahead. Just because you don't know the guys' names, Mark, doesn't mean they're going to be scrubs. And so, sure, replacing a guy like Dylan Gabriel is going to be tough for Oklahoma. And I think people do know Jackson Arnold's name. I think to use an Oklahoma example, everybody is concerned about what the offensive line picture is going to look like after the Sooners lost all 5 starters this offseason to the NFL and to the transfer portal. And again, those concerns are justified. But the other side of that coin is just because you don't know the guys' names doesn't mean, to quote Josh Pate, a good friend and one of the respected voices in the industry, doesn't mean they're going to be trotting potato sacks out there on the offensive line. No, you go play for Bill Bedenbaugh at the University of Oklahoma, you've got skills. So, again, that's not exclusive to Oklahoma. I think that's applicable to every single program across college football, but it cannot be emphasized enough. Just because you don't know who's replacing XYZ departed stud football player does not mean that they're going to fail to live up to the standard.
Do you think that the concerns surrounding line play on both sides of the ball, but specifically you mentioned the offensive line trying to handle the girth and the NFL future players that they'll face, but then also that speed off the edge is overplayed? I see it all over the place in regards to Oklahoma. How are they going to handle SEC line play at this point in the program's development under Brent Venables?
Here's another evergreen statement that is broadly applicable across college football, Mark. Regardless of which team you cover or root for, regardless of your affiliation, it's generally probably never as bad as you think it is, but also never as good as you think it is. So for me, I don't think Oklahoma is going to have rampant struggles blocking the run or protecting Jackson Arnold in the pocket. I think their offensive line play is going to be fine. Is it going to be elite? I don't necessarily have that expectation, but they did make some key additions. Right guard Fabichi Weewu is how you pronounce his name. If you look at it spelled out, you would never guess that's how you pronounce it. It's Nwaiwu is how you spell his last name. But Fabichi Weewu was a really good transfer addition from North Texas. Branson Hickman, the center they brought in from SMU, 33 career starts, second team All AAC last year. Jacob Sexton has starting experience at Oklahoma, and I'll tell you right now, that may be Bill Bedenbaugh's next first rounder. He's had 2 of them in back-to-back years, Anton Harrison in 2023, and obviously Tyler Guyton back in April of 2024. Jacob Sexton could be Bill Bedenbaugh's next first-round talent. Jake Taylor right now I would project as the starting right tackle. Oklahoma brought in USC transfer Michael Tarquin, a rising 6th-year senior, as somebody that can be a swing tackle, and he has played guard as well, so there's a lot of versatility there. And Garen Hatchett started at left guard last year for a Washington team that ended up winning the Joe Moore Award. Now, he didn't start all season, had some injury issues, but still, that is by no means a scrub either. And so you look at the offensive line picture for Oklahoma. Is it ideal to be replacing 5 starters? No, never. But Bill Bedenbaugh and this program did an amazing job scouring the transfer portal for available talent and bringing in guys that there will be a degree of confidence in. as you prepare for SEC trench fights, because in guys like Hickman and guys like Weewoo and guys like Hatchet and Tarquin, you have dudes that have been through the fire, and you also have some really exciting up-and-coming young pieces in guys like Sexton and Taylor.
Parker, you made a statement, very profound one, concerning the extremes that the college football fan bases live in on both ends of the spectrum. I'll make a similar statement about offensive line play, that there are few teams across the country, even considering national championship expected contenders for the title, that have set offensive line rotations and know exactly and feel good about every position and where everyone's going to play going into fall camp.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth. And I mean, shoot, Oklahoma has had offensive line play as consistent as anybody in the country throughout the entirety of Bill Bedenbaugh's tenure. And Mark, I've been covering this team for 5-6 years now, and every single fall, there's never a lack of question regarding, okay, who's going to go here? Who's going to go here? What does the permutation look like? There are always things that Oklahoma's figuring out on the offensive line as late as August and even on into the season in September. So developing offensive linemen is a hard thing to do. Evaluating offensive linemen is a hard thing to do. That's why I have immense respect for anybody like Bill Bedenbaugh that can make a living, and a good one, as an offensive line coach, because it is a hard position to coach. But time after time, regardless of what it's looked like, Oklahoma has rolled out a very stable line. And again, the personnel might be shuffled. The lineup in week 1 might not be the same as the lineup in week 13, but the overarching feeling, I think, from the folks that cover this Oklahoma team and to fans that have a sense of rationality about everything, is that you might have the best offensive line coach in the country on staff. He's probably going to figure it out.
And I believe the most important position unit coach, by and large, for most teams across the board, as a general rule. We got Parker Thune here, OU Insider. It's on Rivals. Got to get there. This is the perfect time to do it. May, June, camps going on. So much to track regarding the 2025 class and 2026. You'll see a lot of those offers going out as well. KREF Sports Monday through Friday. That's noon to 3 Central Time. And so going beyond the offensive line position, of course, there are going to be stories that break during August camp, but much of it's anticipated in regards to what positions you are eyeing. So where are those best battles on both lines of the scrimmage?
It's interesting. It doesn't really feel like there are any huge battles that are percolating at Oklahoma as fall camp draws closer and closer. You know who the quarterback is, right? Jackson Arnold's the guy. You know who your starting running back is, Gavin Sawchuk, who closed the 2023 season with 5 straight 100-plus yard contests. Bauer Sharp, the Southeastern Louisiana transfer, has been wondrous throughout spring practices, has really made a strong impression and solidified himself as the starting tight end heading into the season. The Sooners are very deep at wide receiver, very deep. Purdue transfer Deion Burks absolutely has the potential to be one of the best and most productive wide receivers in all of college football. If he stays healthy and he is getting the share of targets that his skill set deserves and demands, he'll be in the running for the Biletnikoff, Mark. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. Nick Anderson returns, tied for the Big 12 lead in touchdown catches a year ago. Jaden Gibson had plenty of nice moments. Jalil Farouk is a 2-year starter. And there are others. Again, younger guys coming up in this Oklahoma system. Andrell Anthony, let's not forget about him, the Michigan transfer, who was Oklahoma's most productive wide receiver over the first half of the season last year before suffering a season-ending injury against Texas. And you look at some of the younger guys, Jaquays Petaway brings a lot of excitement to the table. Brennan Thompson is a speed merchant. So regardless of what the wide receiver rotation looks like, there are probably 7 or 8 guys that you're going to see at that position on a regular basis for Oklahoma. You flip over to the defensive side of the ball. The addition of Dominic Williams was massive for Oklahoma, because that was kind of the one position where the typical OU fan was a little bit uncertain about what it was going to look like. You had a couple of very outstanding true freshman defensive tackles that made plays in spring, and David Stone, the former 5-star recruit, and Jaden Jackson, an IMG Academy product. But even so, it was a question of who are you going to plug in against, or I should say alongside incumbent starter Dejon Terry at defensive tackle. Dominic Williams was one of the most coveted players at any position in the entire spring portal cycle, maybe the most coveted. So he is an instant impact dude, instantly helps solidify Oklahoma on the interior of the trenches. And elsewhere on defense, the Sooners bring back 9 of 11 starters, Mark. So it's not as if there's a lot to figure out defensively. You know what you're rocking with. Your guys are going to be a year older and a year wiser in Brent Venables' system. And there's a ton of depth as well. There are, I'll use cornerback and safety as examples of this. Cornerback, your 2 starters are in all likelihood Gentry Williams and Woody Washington. But you can roll out a guy like Des Malone, a 3-year starter at San Diego State who transferred to Oklahoma in the offseason. Makari Vickers and Jacoby Johnson are really exciting young players. Peyton Bowen's younger brother, Eli, is only a true freshman, but make no mistake, he may be every bit as good of a football player as his older brother is. And his older brother obviously made quite the impact at Oklahoma last year as a true freshman at safety. And as you transition to safety, it's Peyton Bowen, it's Billy Bowman, who should be in the running for the Thorpe Award. Robert Spears Jennings is probably going to be the 3rd guy in that mix. Rising junior, big body. Obviously, Bowman and Bowen are 2 smaller guys at the safety position. Good hitters. They run well. They're not huge. They're not enforcers by any means. Robert Spears Jennings is that. So in the secondary and really across the entire defense, Danny Stutzman's return at middle linebacker is huge for Oklahoma. But there's so much to be confident in on that side of the ball. It really does feel like this is going to be Brent Venables' best defense during his tenure as head coach at Oklahoma by a long shot. They should be markedly better than they were a season ago.
Parker Thune breaking down OU football for us. Of course, we are just about 5 or 6 weeks away from Big 12 Media Days. And then once that hits, we slide right into August camp and we're off and running. Whether you want to combine the incoming transfers and the true freshmen, however you want to do it, who do you see making an impact? And of course, the true freshmen are in a much different place and category. It's difficult for them to make a splash, but there are those guys that you expect will make an impact this fall.
I think there's enough depth right now on both sides of the ball that with regard to true freshmen in particular, I think it would be, frankly, a surprise if there were any true freshmen that made a seismic impact on Oklahoma football in 2024. And OU recruited really well this past recruiting cycle, right? They signed the number 7 class in the country, headlined by a 5-star, top 5 player nationally in defensive tackle David Stone. For me, it's probably, it starts with 3 names. David Stone and Jaden Jackson, whom I mentioned in the defensive tackle position, they did a lot of good things in spring. And defensive tackle is one of those spots, Mark, where especially in the SEC, you're going to need more than 2 guys. Your starters are Dejon Terry and Dominic Williams. You're going to have to dig into the bench. And you're going to have guys in that group that can give you key snaps in crucial situations and make sure that your horses aren't dog tired by the end of 60 minutes of SEC football. So David Stone and Jaden Jackson immediately jump to mind. I mentioned Eli Bowen as well. To me, those 3 guys are dudes that I can see making an immediate impact on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, freshman running back Taylor Tatum just moved in over the weekend. He did not enroll early, got here in June, as used to be the norm, right? Nowadays, the norm is guys get there in January and go through spring ball. But Taylor Tatum was the number 1 running back in the country in the 2024 class. Big pickup for DeMarco Murray. Again, I don't really sense right now that there's going to be a true freshman on the offensive side of the ball that makes a huge productive dent for Oklahoma. But if you put a gun to my head and say, okay, one of these guys is really going to pop off in fall camp, name him, I would say Taylor Tatum has the potential to rise up the Oklahoma depth chart at running back in a hurry and work into a rotational role right off the bat because he is special.
You know as well as anyone that on the fringe of the recruiting focus, most college football fans, they get lured in by the rankings, of course, who's the number one player at the position, all of that. So David Stone, known by college football fans by and large. You mentioned Jaden Jackson. It's typically that second guy at a position for a particular team. He could be the fourth rated guy in the country at that position, but if the other guy's number one, nobody talks much about him, but it sounds like you're really high on Jaden Jackson, and he could be just 1A to David Stone's, number one spot in future years for OU.
Absolutely. The future at defensive tackle is very bright for the Sooners. And look, in the transfer portal era, you have to always add the asterisk, the caveat that you got to retain the talent, right? But it doesn't seem like the Sooners should have any issue retaining the talent as far as David Stone and Jaden Jackson are concerned. Both of those guys have really embraced everything that's been thrown at them in 5 months now at the University of Oklahoma and have both really made waves to the point where I do expect that you'll see a lot of both of them this fall. Again, I wouldn't say either starts, at least not initially, but I do think you'll see a lot of them. And one of my radio colleagues is a fellow, and this will be a name you know, Mark, a fellow named Teddy Lehman, who won the Butt Kiss Award back in his day and had a nice long NFL career after that as a linebacker. So Teddy knows ball, and he's also around the program constantly, watching practices, just getting a feel for everything that's going on behind closed doors. And I'll put it this way. When a guy like that tells you Jaden Jackson might be the best defensive tackle on the roster at Oklahoma, and this is obviously pre-Dominic Williams, but when a guy like that says, yeah, Jaden Jackson might already be the best defensive tackle on the roster, that's an opinion that you're going to listen to.